Well, welcome everybody to episode 4 now of the Merck at Work podcast. Today, I'm really excited. We're getting back to healthcare this week. And Kobe, this is a who's who of surgery and ASCs joining us today. So I know I've told you a little bit about Janet, and I'm excited.
Janet, we're pumped to have you. You're our first healthcare guest since Wade, so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Kobe. Nice to meet you virtually. And Kyle, always good
Yeah.
to connect again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would probably leave out so many of your accolades and your uh, signature block, all the things that you've done. So why don't a lot of people know who you are in surgery and ASC, but for those listeners that might not know, why don't you give us a little brief intro and some of your background and
Sure.
where it's brought you today in your career?
Thank you for that. So my name is Janet Carlson. I'm a registered nurse. My background began in nursing in the emergency department. And then I discovered there was such a thing as an ASC. And so I started working in one. Interestingly enough, it was because I was a patient in one, and the nurse manager was starting my IV and prepping me for surgery and just making small talk with me. And she said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a nurse." She said, "What kind?" I said, "I'm, the best." No, I'm kidding. I said, I'm an ER nurse. And she said, "Where?" And I said, "Well, next door at the big house." And she looked at me and she said, "Would you like a job?" And I was just like, "What?" And so she explained to me very succinctly why, as an ER nurse, I would be able to easily come and work in an ASC, because the way she described it, everything I was doing as an ER nurse day in and day out for over a decade was what was occurring in the ASC space. And so she let me know how I was already trained, primed, and prepared. And so she, wisely put a paper application. This tells you how long ago it was. She put a paper application in my discharge folder, and went home and when I filled it out and had someone drop it off for me, and I started in the ASC 3 weeks later. And it was sort of an awakening for me. Like, they didn't tell me that this world existed in nursing school. Frankly, they don't tell nursing students really a whole lot about surgical perioperative world, the interventional world, endoscopy world. You don't know that there's all these different types of interventions and surgeries and procedures. You don't get exposure to that in nursing school. And so anyway, I jumped right in as a PACU nurse, fell in love with ASCs, and then I have a little bit more experience also in the interventional world. I'm certified in interventional nursing. So everything cardiovascular, interventional radiology, neurovascular. I love that world as well. Every day there's something new. And so then I got into leadership in the perioperative spaces, inside health systems, running perioperative departments, starting an endoscopy unit, being in charge of an interventional radiology department. And in 2018, I'd had my fill of inpatient leadership. And so I took a great new opportunity to become a CEO of a very successful orthopedic pain and spine surgery center, which I added urology to while I was there. And so from there, got me back into the ASC game, but as a leader. And now I am working as the Executive Director for Commonwealth Pain and Spine. And this is where I have developed our entire ambulatory strategy, and I'm executing on it by building 3 current de novo build-to-suit, beautiful, brand new, best-in-class ASCs across our clinical footprint, with more to come.
Yeah, well, That's awesome. And I can say firsthand, I've driven by one of them and it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that location you guys chose is like a prime spot for healthcare in that market. So yeah, congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
And definitely,
We've been very targeted about where we're placing these surgery centers. Obviously, it makes sense for them to be near our clinics, but we, in a couple of locations, we're very close also to the VA clinic, which is intentional.
yeah,
I have a soft spot for our veterans, and so that was intentional as well.
for sure. I know myself, I've got veterans in the family, and Kobe, I know that your
Yep.
father served as well. So definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, our entire family served. So
Yeah, that's
That's
multiple,
awesome.
multiple generations. I worked actually for the Navy as a nurse, as a contract nurse, um, in the interventional world. So
wow, that's neat.
I feel like your resume just keeps growing as you keep
it does.
talking.
Well, Kyle's being very kind. I have a lot of what I call alphabet soup behind my name.
Yeah.
Um, but what it is just personal goals of mine for professional development, and to
Yeah.
push myself to learn more. And frankly, to be able to have a seat at the table in the healthcare conversation, especially at the larger national level,
Mhm.
you really honestly won't get invited to have a seat at the table if you don't have the experience and you haven't proven that you've held yourself to a higher standard professionally to be board certified. I'm
Mhm.
a fellow also of the American College of Healthcare Executives. That's usually when they will listen to what you have to say.
Mhm.
Not many nurses are represented well in a lot of different forums. And so those are personal, professional goals of mine, but it was also intentional so that uh, when somebody saw my resume or my credentials, they knew that hopefully they would take me quasi seriously.
Yeah. Well, if they're not, then they should. So,
Thank you.
yeah, that segues into. I know you do some stuff in Washington D.C.
I
and you
do.
talk to Congress about
Hmm.
surgery and the ASCs. Tell us a little bit about that. I think that's really neat.
Thank you. So I our lobbying pack, if you will, for ASCs is called ASCA, ASCA.
Hmm.
And so they have an annual event where they ask people, leaders in the ASC space, people that are very knowledgeable about what ASCs can offer patients, physicians, and clinical clinicians like myself, what they offer to our nation, to
Hmm.
our population. And so I've participated a couple of times and will lobby Congress, go to Capitol Hill. We have targeted scheduled appointments with the senators and congressmen and women of the districts that we are interested in or the states that I'm representing, that I'm working in.
Hmm.
And so it's been a very impactful event every time that I go. It's basically education
Hmm.
and educating those folks that are in that position what an ASC truly is and
Yeah.
what it does for their constituents and what it does also federally to save money specific to CMS with Medicare and Medicaid, how
Hmm.
we save the overall state allotment of Medicare, Medicaid dollars, how by having care in our site of service in an ASC, how much money we save.
Yeah.
So we try to, quantify that along with talking about the outcomes for patients, the accessibility, how we can take care of them much quicker than typically they are in a health system,
Hmm.
and also the affordability and the great patient outcomes that we have. And so we are asking for their support because of the reimbursements that we have in the ASC world are
Hmm.
not commensurate to the work that we do.
Yeah.
And we are always run on very, very lean margins. And so those are a lot of the things that we talk about when we share what an ASC is and then what our ask is of them to help support us. We're sort of the David to the Goliath on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
You have the AHA, you have the AMA.
Mm-hmm.
The AHA is very, very, very powerful with their lobbying pack, and so we're the little engine that could, but we deliver results. We do
Yeah.
what we say for sure,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot more hopeful understanding of the value that ASCs bring to each community.
Yeah, for sure. We love working in the ASCs. We see the impact it has, and you know, it, I think people are catching the vision of it because you're seeing more and more services move out that way. I mean,
Definitely.
cardiovascular CVORs are
Mm-hmm.
expanding like crazy. Interventional pain, like what you're doing,
Yes.
is continuing to grow, and you're seeing people like yourself kind of leading the vision of it, and people are catching on. So hopefully it continues that way.
It's definitely going to continue in that trend.
Mm-hmm.
As we see consolidation by large health systems, the consolidation meaning they're buying up all the private practices.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that, they now have tied up the whole referral pattern network. And so,
Yeah.
for example, say you're a surgeon and you are purchased by a health system. Well, they now are going to tell you where you're going to take your surgical cases. And so, say that prior independent surgeon, she or he took their cases to a surgery center. Well, now that they're part of a health system, I can guarantee you they're going to encourage them strongly to use their what's called an HOPD,
Mm-hmm.
which is a hospital outpatient department,
Yeah.
which is just like an ASC,
Mm-hmm.
but it has a different moniker, and so it's paid like a hospital.
Oh
And
yeah.
so
Huh.
this whole thing that I just explained is part of the reason why healthcare costs are rising. So the same surgery done in an HOPD is paid the hospital contracted rates. In an ASC, we're paid completely differently because our reimbursement is tied to two different metrics. They're not the same.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's discussions we hear and deal with
Mhm.
consistently, and it if they really want to drive down the costs, it's folks like yourself and others in that ASC market that can really help it.
Mhm.
Hopefully there's some ears that will listen.
I hope. I hope. Sometimes the best way to get people on board to support the ambulatory surgical initiatives, especially with CON laws and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
usually changes when they personally or someone in their family has had surgery and they've had the exposure of being in a surgery center and had a completely different experience than they would have had traditionally in a larger health system. We're much more uh, patient centric, meaning we're very, very, it's a very concierge experience for the
Mm-hmm.
patient and the family. Um, we're, we're very lean with our resources. And so we do a very good job of patient throughput. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and we also, work hard on our communication with the patient and the family to keep them updated. But traditionally, ASCs, when you're there, we're there to work, and we're
Yeah.
going to work. We're going to work until we don't. We don't go down to one room at 3 o'clock like hospitals do. We keep working until the day is done
Yeah.
and take care of the patients. And so, it traditionally is a very different experience for the patient and their family, but it's also a very different experience for our surgeons. And our surgeons are our producer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work very hard to um, serve them, keep them engaged, and make their day the best day of the week when they come to my surgery center to do cases.
Yeah. No, it's, like I said, we do so much work there, and you see the throughput, and some people might look at that and say, well, they're just moving them in and out. But
No,
the best place to heal is at home, and you guys are
yes,
helping make that happen. And, there's so much that can, you sit around at a hospital for days and days on end, whereas you could be in and out of a surgery center in a couple hours and be back home and walking,
Correct.
Yeah.
or
Yes.
get your feet up on your favorite chair and get in bed.
Yes.
So
Right. And we have a much lower risk of potential infection.
hmm
Um, so we, you know, nothing against patients that need to be taken care of in hospitals. There
yeah,
are
totally.
those that there are patients that don't meet our anesthesia selection criteria at all. And so
Yeah.
those patients are done in the correct site of service in the hospital. But traditionally, we have very, very good outcomes and very, very low infection rates. And, the risk of all the things that you could get in the hospital is so much greater
hmm
than if you came to a surgery center.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, and that's good segue. And what other trends are you seeing in the ASC world that where do you see it kind of going from here?
Well, so you mentioned it earlier about cardiovascular.
hmm
I recently was asked to comment on what are the big initiatives I see in the ASC space for Becker's, and my answer was focused on, like you mentioned, the interventional pain
hmm
uh, could and should be done primarily in the ASC space. There's always the continued migration of orthopedic procedures specific to total joint
Yeah.
replacements, and we should even consider total joint revisions in ASCs.
hmm
We just have to make it where we know we're going to be able to cover our costs and have a slim margin. And that's why a lot of revisions aren't done in ASCs because
hmm
of the lack of the reimbursement, and the cases usually take longer.
Yeah.
Um, we also are seeing spine continuing to grow,
Yeah.
the migration of high acuity cases, SI joint fusions, cervical fusions, multi-level cervical disc arthroplasty, and lumbar fusions as well. So then you add to that the peripheral vascular, neurovascular, interventional radiology, and cardiovascular.
hmm
There's really not a whole lot that can't be done in an ASC space if it's designed to take care of those folks, if it has the equipment, and you have the staff, clinical knowledge on board, trained for that type of acuity, meaning the patients that need um, more care, longer recovery times. They've
Yeah.
had a lot more of an involved surgery.
hmm
So as long as you're prepared to make sure that everybody can take care of these patients, recognize any issues immediately to address them, this migration will continue. And the hospitals have difficulty with their volumes and their acuity levels. And so the patients that are healthy enough to do so should migrate away from the hospitals and out to the ASC.
hmm
Um, and again, it's going to be a continual migration because the payers are finally recognizing the cost savings.
Yeah.
Um, and people are recognizing the incredible outcomes and experience that are traditional with an ASC.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's another one that we've seen a lot here recently is eyes, and that
Oh,
those
yes.
happen so
Yep.
quick, and you
Yes.
know you, we've seen them move in and out. The doctor's done in 10 minutes. They're
It's
in the
crazy
in
fast.
the
Uh-huh.
PACU for
It
another
is.
20 minutes, and they're
And
on their
that's
way
it.
home.
Yeah, it's just incredible the advances in medicine in general, and that sort of advancement specific to ophthalmology is a prime example. And those advancements are happening in every surgical service line that we know of. So continued technology, working smarter, not harder, using imaging,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. A lot of people use robots
Yeah.
for certain things, certain procedures where it makes sense. Um, you're just going to continue to see that sort of adoption of technology, even in the ASC space, that will
Yeah.
help the patient outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. we've seen, robotics being used in the ASCs, smaller ones. It doesn't even have to
Mm-hmm.
be a huge one. And so, yeah, I agree. You touched on it a little bit earlier with physicians and how they're your producers, the surgeons. What I was just gonna, blanket kind of statement here, and you can dive in however you see. But what makes a successful ASC in your mind?
Well, it starts with the physician partners. You need a group of motivated, like-minded physician surgeons that
Mm-hmm.
understand that coming together to create this ASC specific LLC, that they all have to work collaboratively,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to ensure that they are going to be good with their word of migrating the cases that are eligible away from the inpatient setting to the ambulatory setting. You want physicians that will utilize the block time that they're given, and they're also going to collaborate with one another to say, hey, I'm going on vacation, so I'm going to release my block time and let somebody else take it. Because even if they're on vacation, if they own shares of an ASC, they're
Mm-hmm.
still going to be winning because somebody is in their ASC producing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so it's a wonderful diversified compensation portfolio for surgeons if they can purchase shares of an ASC that they work in. And so not only are you aligned to the success of the ASC, but you're given the guaranteed OR block time that you're going to utilize and drive as many of your eligible ambulatory surgeries to your surgery center. And that is key to the success. So I would say like-minded physicians that get along. You can't have really top end producers and then have a producer that'll do one or two cases a month
Mm-hmm.
and they still want to own shares. That's not going to work. I mean,
Yeah.
that sets a bad tone in any environment.
Mm-hmm.
So you want everyone there that's going to get behind the mission, vision, values of that organization to provide care to their patients and to get the patients that need surgical intervention seen and treated as soon as possible, which you can do with your own ASC.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of layers. ASCs traditionally are very flat organizations. And so we can adapt. A simple phone call to me because the doc was on call in the hospital and took trauma call and, I need to add this case on. Well, okay, I'll start you in this room early and I'll give a courtesy call to that other physician that has the flip room to say, I'm starting somebody in your room,
Yeah.
courtesy call. I promise we'll be out of there by the time you need to flip into, I
Yeah.
promise. Um, or we'll add it to the end of the day, or we'll add a case when during lunchtime if the physician can pop over and do it. So that's just an example of our flexibility
Yeah.
and how we can take care of the acute need of the injury for the patient, get them in soon.
Yeah. No, the I had firsthand experience in that just the other day. I was doing an inventory and they came in and said, about how much longer are you going to be in here? I
Yes.
said, but 5 or 10 minutes. They said, well, we're going to flip the room. So it's
Yep.
actually going to help
We
you.
need you to get moving and get out.
Yeah. But it's actually going to help you because the other room that you need to get into is now open.
Now open. That's
So
right.
it's probably some of what you just talked about was taking place and we were able
Hmm.
to get more work done quicker because of what they were
Hmm.
doing. So yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yes. So
Uh,
successful ASCs are led by strong physicians and also clinical administrators. So the other key to success is to have. I'm very I'm very opinionated in my belief that I think clinicians are the perfect folks that can lead ASCs. They
mhm,
have the expertise. They have done the work themselves. They can walk the talk. They speak the language,
mhm,
and automatically you usually have the respect of your team
mhm.
because they know that you've done it before and you still can do it.
Yeah.
And also ASCs, we don't cancel cases if at all possible. now there are cancellations that we can't control when somebody, has a biscuit on their way in and
Yeah.
you told them not to eat and they did anyway. So those type of things are out of your control.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is having, for example, a nurse, clinical operator of an ASC is my preference. And say somebody's child, the school nurse calls and says your child's sick, you have to come pick your child up. And it's a nurse in the OR or pre-op or the PACU. Well, the administrator or me myself can jump in and do it. We can still take care of the patient, but allow our teammate to go and take care of their family. And so I think having strong clinicians to drive initiatives, to understand the finances, the quality measures, and the operational workflow and the acuity level of cases really comes with experience.
Yeah.
And there's really not a how-to book on how to be a ASC administrator.
Yeah.
It's sort of a baptism by fire when you're in the hot seat. So, but that clinical administrator of the ASC will, and I know so many of them that are outstanding. They will take the ASC to bigger and bigger heights because they understand what their team is capable of, and they run a tight ship, and they are a destination of choice for physicians and for clinicians to work there.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be an attractive thing for a surgeon. Just thinking from their perspective, it's like, hey, this place is operationally it runs like a top, so this is where I want to go.
Correct. And when one of your surgeon partners goes to a conference and then they come back and they've heard their colleague peers are doing something, very neat, fun, advanced technique, they want to do it. Well, you can usually, after you ensure that they're trained and you can prove that they've had the hands-on experience with it, and you just need to negotiate the pricing with the vendor that you're using, you can usually get that new procedure in your surgery center very quickly, as long as, like I said, everything checks the box. But try to do that in a hospital, good luck. Good luck. It goes through a lot of process. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. And then a lot of times, by the time it's reviewed multiple times, you're told no. So, and I think that's disenfranchising for surgeons because they just stop bringing new initiatives after they keep being told no in the big, large OR arena. And so I think that makes another attractive value proposition of an ASC.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely. And even something I'll throw in there too, Janet. It's like, you get these doctors that come in there and they're kind of passionate. And it's like they're there to study medicine. They want to try new things. They want to experiment and see what's really going to work and what's not going to work. And you want people like that so that you're able to seek improvements and, not just plateau. And
no, I want the physician working on me that's at the top of her game or his game, and I want them to constantly be pushing themselves to learn new things or to improve or to hear about a technique that will help the patient and it doesn't take as long and it's not as invasive. Those are the physicians that you want. And so you have that very ripe environment in an ASC to collaborate with the surgeons and let me also say this, a lot of people aren't aware that ASCs are the perfect place to conduct research. And so the surgeons that really want to stay involved, researching, trialing new things, publishing, so they are speaking on the podium about it, ASCs make the ideal partner for you to do very, very high level, high quality research, especially when you're partnering with the company, for example, with a new implant or a new piece of equipment or a new medication. ASCs are perfect for that venue.
That's great.
It's really cool.
That's it really identifies the innovator, type surgeon, and that's really neat. I've dealt with one that, I had some shoulder issues, and
Mm-hmm.
he was the type that he was big into the whole PRP
Oh,
treatment.
absolutely. Why
And
not try it?
he's like, why don't we give this a shot? You're here in the
Sure.
office. He could have immediately said,
Yep.
nope,
Let's go to surgery.
we
Yep.
need surgery.
Yeah.
Like, let's go in there and dig around. And
Yep.
I might not have gotten that much better,
Yes.
but PRP and
Mm-hmm.
just staying on top of innovations and stuff was great. And that I think you identified. Those are some of the people that could have real success at a surgery center level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, great. That's really neat information. You know us a little bit. We do work on the asset management and capital planning of medical equipment. So I wanted to get your perspective
Yes.
of your view of asset management, capital planning, the equipment's role in the ASC, and what your vision is for utilization and all that good
Right.
stuff.
Well, first of all, it's important to have folks like yourselves to help you stay on top of your capital equipment because um, it's been my experience in multiple surgery centers that are already in existence that I've taken over,
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to wrap my head around what we have in inventory
Yeah.
for anything is near impossible, or it's an old Excel spreadsheet that hasn't been updated since the doors were open. And it's impossible to know how old some equipment is and when is it end of life. And,
Yeah.
we definitely stay on top of the preventative maintenance of
Yeah.
the equipment. We won't use anything on patients that aren't safed and checked and
Yeah.
street legal, to use that term.
Yeah.
But we often have opportunities for improvement where we could have somebody like yourselves come in, um, document everything, tag it, put it into your software system, and
Mm-hmm.
then it'll depreciate over time, and it gives you a very nice visual of you're still in the green with this equipment, but
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start needing to think about replacing it in this window, in this
Yeah.
time frame, because we have to do our budgeting, we have to
Yeah.
forecast for the next year, and I need to know how much I need to allot for capital expenditure
Yeah.
just to keep the doors open and keep things moving. Having said that, when I add a new type of surgery, or I bring in a different surgeon or a different surgical service line, for
Yeah.
example, like I mentioned, urology, I need an outlay of big figures to just purchase the equipment to then have what they need to do the cases in my ASC.
Yeah.
And so it is imperative that on my P&L, I'm depreciating things out, but I'm also allotting the cash needed to purchase new equipment. And what does that look like? And how are we are we financing it? Or,
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to fund something like this? Do we want to take on debt, or do we want to pay cash for it? That type of thing. So I can't, I can't overstate the opportunity that every ASC has to improve in this area. Um, and so that way, your books are true.
Mm-hmm.
Your gross revenue and your EBITDA net revenues are true. And you're accruing, if you need to, for future equipment, or, hey, something broke, but it's not a big deal because, we kind of have an escrow fund set aside that we can replace the equipment and not slow down any of our operations.
Yeah. And it's something you mentioned earlier is you guys are running a tight operation. Your
Very,
margins are slim. So
very slim.
every ounce of information you can get, whether it's
Yes,
equipment or
right.
surgeons or disposables or whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be, you have to, like you said, be lean. You have to stay on top of those things. And,
Mm-hmm.
equipment is probably, your second largest cost outside of the personnel, surgeons, nursing
Yeah,
staff,
labor
labor.
and supplies.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
like we've used the terminology, internally. It's like if you own a home, you want to know what, your
Yes,
refrigerator's like, your houses or your
yes.
HVAC, your car. you want to know
Yes.
what kind of lifespan it has, what kind of value it has.
Sure.
So why wouldn't you in your work home, your
Mm-hmm.
hospital, your ASC, your endoscopy center, whatever it might be, want to know those same kind of things. So yeah,
Well, it's just like if you were selling your house,
yeah,
you'd need to know all of that information. If you
yep,
were going to sell your surgery center, you would need to know that information.
exactly.
Yep.
So that's no, totally. You, I know that you see the vision in those kind of
Mhm.
things, and that's I've always appreciated that, and that you understand what our perspective is, and that's
100%.
that's great. So yeah, no, I think that just you've actually helped us do some of the things that maybe not even knowingly given us insights into some of the things that we've started implementing into
Oh, that's
our
wonderful to hear.
software. So yeah,
Yep.
I love that.
yeah. So we're actually just a small plug. The new version's coming out here very, very soon. So,
Oh,
um,
wonderful.
and like I said, your
Hmm.
insights that you've given us over time have definitely influenced where it's going. So,
Oh, I'm thrilled
uh,
to hear that.
yeah. So, thank you again.
You're welcome. You know, I'll give my opinion, Kyle, any
I
day.
know.
So, I mean, I'm so shy.
Yeah. No, no, I've always enjoyed our discussions on those things because I know that you're going to cut right to it. So,
Always.
yeah.
That's the ER nurse in me. Let's get straight to the point.
Exactly. And you know what? I was going to even say that when you were talking earlier, some of the most awesome people we work with when we're at the hospital are the ER nurses. We tell them what we're going to do. They're just
Yep.
like, whatever you got to do, just stay out
Do
of
it.
our way.
That's
If
right.
if an
Yep.
emergency comes in, we're like, got
All
it.
good.
Yeah. They're like
Understood.
they're like the easiest people to deal with because
Yes,
once you tell them what you're going to do, they're just like, go do what you got to do.
exactly. Exactly.
So love the folks in the ER. So
Yeah,
Yep.
they're a special breed,
they
and
are.
thank God for all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So well, you've laid out so much good information here, and I think a lot of people that'll listen in will have some really good things to chew on. And but what we like to do to kind of wrap things up is go
Hmm.
into a little bit more the personal side of the
Hmm.
guests that we have and what makes you tick, like outside of the office or outside of work. What are hobbies or anything like
Hobbies.
that? So let us
Well,
know.
obviously, I enjoy time off. Not that
Yes.
there is a lot of it. Um, I probably need to balance my work life integration a little better, but I'm running hard right now to get
Yeah.
things going in multiple surgery centers, and that's my priority. But when
Yeah.
I do have some time, obviously I enjoy spending time with my family.
Hmm.
Um, we don't live in the same town, and so we have to travel to see one another. And I have two precious grandchildren that I love to spend time with. They're at such a fun age, and I happen to live on a lake, so I'm a lake girl. That
Yeah.
mentality. So I have a wakeboard boat. We go
Oh, nice.
wake surfing, wakeboarding. I like to slalom ski. I've got some jet skis as well.
Oh,
So
those are a blast.
yes,
Sweet.
we have a lot of fun on the lake.
Yeah.
During the season that we have here in South Carolina, it's pretty mild up
Yeah.
through October,
Hmm.
and it'll start warming up here probably in March. So living on the lake is kind of my life aesthetic, if you will.
Yeah.
But if I do travel, which I love to travel internationally, I go scuba diving.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
so that is a, a really fun um, hobby to have, because when you travel anywhere in the world where there's water, you can scuba dive. And
Yeah.
so you
Yep.
get to go to new geography, you get to meet new people, be exposed to new cultures and social mores and norms and
Yeah.
food and all of that. So, I am so blessed. I don't need things. I would rather have experiences. And that means spending time with those that I love, my family and my
Yeah.
friends. But I'm trying to drive a lot of folks in my circle get scuba certified to go with me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get folks to adopt the let's go diving. Let's go
Yeah.
see some
Convinced
fun
anyone yet?
stuff. What's that?
I said, have you convinced anyone yet?
I have. I've actually got 2 surgeons
There you
that
go.
went. Yeah, I actually now have a draft email of here are all the steps and here's what I did and here's what worked really well. And I just make it easy for them. Like, here's all the links. Here's what you do. So it's a lot of fun. It's a whole new world. And unless you've done it, it's hard to explain, but it is life. It's life changing when you can see the wonders of just what is under the sea and things that you've never known before and couldn't even imagine.
That's
So
what I've heard. I've never done it myself, and everybody
highly
says it's
encourage you to do it.
yeah. Everybody said it's a whole
Highly
new world
encourage
under
you.
there. So
Well, I mean, a lot of people can snorkel and you can see,
yeah.
but that's only to a certain level. You really need to get down underneath the water and go exploring.
All right. So what's the best scuba spot you've ever been, or top 3?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I'm conflicted to answer it because I can't give you the top, but I can give you the top 3.
Okay.
I will lead with the Philippines.
Wow.
Just the most beautiful coral reefs, and just all of the variety of sea life there. It's just I can't count how many turtles we saw and rays, and I mean and then when you look in the micro level, there's incredible things at the micro level, especially if you're doing underwater photography. So the Philippines is unspoiled and is healthy and thriving, thankfully.
Yeah.
So can't wait to get back there. The other place that I'm very fond of is Bonaire. That is an island. They call the ABC Islands, but it's the Dutch Antilles.
Okay.
And so it's Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, just north of Venezuela.
Yeah.
And so Bonaire is spectacular. It's a very small island. It's all shore dives. So when I go, we get a pickup truck and we throw our tanks in the back and we just go to all the different places and
That's great.
Put your gear on, walk in and go. And I also had a great dive experience last summer in St. Croix as well. So got to see in all these places I've mentioned, the Philippines, Bonaire, and St. Croix. We've gone wreck diving too. So you see different types of ships and planes and things like that. Yes.
That's really cool.
It's very cool. Yes.
Is the Great Barrier Reef on the bucket list?
Always, of course. Definitely.
Awesome.
I also went on a trip to Montserrat. Not a lot of people have been there, heard of it. But Montserrat, the diving was spectacular there as well.
Awesome. That's so neat. That's definitely have to look into that.
Yes, you do.
Maybe you can send us over that email. Me and Kyle
I'm going to send you guys the email. I'm going to send you the email and just break it down for you because thankfully my boyfriend did that for me and made it simple because he was already qualified.
Yeah.
And so we've also gotten our advanced certifications as well. So that allows us to go deeper and to explore new things. But it's been fun, learning and adding new training so that we can go do different things. So one of those things you're always going to keep learning.
Yeah. No,
I'll send you guys the email for sure.
All right. Not only is it a fun thing, but life lesson there. Always keep learning.
Oh, 100%.
Well, it's been our absolute pleasure, Janet. It's always good to talk to you. We enjoyed it. And thank you so much for joining in today.
My pleasure. You're welcome. Thank you guys for having me.
Pleasure meeting you, Janet. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you guys are welcome and have me anytime.
All right.
Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. Thanks again.
You're welcome.